The anonymous player poll is in, and the answer for journalists that ask the easiest questions 100% said Gerald Bourguet. And Sickos unite for another edition of PHNX Suns. As always, I'm Erik, that's Stephen, Gerald to my left, and somebody new behind the Mac because they got Noah on Cardinals draft duty this week. We went from the beef and bach, the mustache behind the Mac, to Kevin Thomas behind the Mac, a.k.a. known as Kevo Post, also our host of our Wildcats show, producer extraordinaire, so we appreciate him.
Them boys been going crazy over there the last couple weeks.
They've been going crazy.
Months, actually.
He's been beeping and booping and doing it at a high level, and we're excited to have him do it for us today. Speaking of high-level chat, already operating on a high level, thank you all so much for getting in here early, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and for our beautiful, wonderful, amazing, perfect audio listeners, thank you so much for rating the show 5 stars wherever you catch us live. We got some breaking-ish news from Marc Stein we're going to dive into first, and we'll talk about the Athletics Anonymous player poll, and also give our free agency pitches because the Suns apparently are not the worst organization in the NBA. And then at the very end, we're going to talk some playoff hoops. But how are we doing here on Hump Day, boys?
Okay.
Apparently great.
I thought he was going to say something.
I was looking to see if somebody else wanted to. I'm doing great. It was another fun night of playoff basketball yesterday. That series is going to be fun between the Timberwolves and the Lakers.
Yeah.
We'll get to playoff talk at the end, but that was a lot of fun to round out last night's playoff play.
Yeah, we thought the Lakers would bounce back, and they did in a big way. But there are a lot of fun series going on. I know there's been a lot of blowouts so far to start the playoffs, which is not ideal. But I think some of these could go 6 or 7 games for sure.
Yeah, it's exciting to get into that. Tomorrow morning, Steven and I will be recording a full playoff recap through the first 2 games of every series. That's going to be for diehards only, so become a diehard today for just $36. This deal will not last forever, but make sure you sign up today. You could see all of Gerald's Trade Machine Tuesday articles, including the one that he released yesterday that we ran through some of the trades for on yesterday's show. Scan that QR code, become a diehard today, go phnx.com/join. We do have an exciting AllCity level announcement later in the show, but before we get there, we did get some reporting from Marc Stein saying that the Phoenix Suns have strong interest in former Golden State executive and current ESPN analyst Bob Myers to take a front office position here in Phoenix. We'll get into exactly what he said here in a second, but Gerald, no surprise that they would want him.
No, I mean, this is not surprising at all. There's been a reason why we've brought up Bob Myers several times as a potential target. Obviously, he's got a pretty nice, cushy job with ESPN right now, one that allows him more time for his family, a lot less stress in terms of not having to do the ins and outs of being a GM on the daily. But we also know that Mat Ishbia is not afraid to spend money on things that he thinks will make his team successful. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I'm sure they're going to probably try and recruit him. The question is whether Bob Myers will be willing to kind of sacrifice the extra free time that he's freed up in his schedule lately.
Yeah, for Ishbia, it's all about return on investment. And the ultimate return on investment, which will lead to residual effect, will be winning a championship and winning multiple, which he's referenced the desire to do a handful of times. Who better to go to on the open market than someone that's been one of the most integral pieces of the best or the only dynasty, honestly, to surface since the mid-90s or early 2000s if you consider the Lakers a dynasty. There's no better option available than him, and I think his proof of concept and all of the values that he's shown to provide align with where they desire to be and could potentially help them get out of this rut.
couple weeks ago, we went through the best and worst moves of Myers, James Jones, Josh Bartlestein. We're going to revisit that here in a second, but I want to read from Marc Stein's Substack. Of course, he is a member of the AllCity crew, the DLLs network out there in Dallas, but he also has his Substack that he puts together with Jake Fisher, so make sure you go subscribe to that. But some comments in the chat of, would Bob Myers want to come to Phoenix? Well, that is something that he mentioned in his Substack, so let's go ahead and just read this here. Says, precisely the sort of executive hire Ishbia is looking to make. Someone to work alongside current lead executive James Jones or outright replace him and take over basketball operations is not entirely clear. It would be super clear, though, if the Suns could successfully lure Bob Myers back to the front office world. You'd struggle to find many league observers who like their chances. Ishbia is said to have maintained a long-standing interest in trying to convince Myers to return to the role in which he presided over 4 Warriors championships, but can the Suns actually pull that off? There is far more skepticism than belief in the desert air at the moment. So the Suns want him. Mat Ishbia has apparently, according to Marc Stein, been trying to lure Bob Myers out. Gerald, what would be the selling point for you to get somebody like Myers, who has succeeded at the highest level 4 different times in that position, and now finds himself in a job that not many people leave, which is analyst for ESPN network that's paying him pretty nice?
It would honestly have to be tailored to whatever Bob Myers wants. If he wants full control over all personnel decisions and whatnot, then it would probably have to be that. If he does want to continue to have more free time and more family time and maybe not have on all of those duties on his plate, maybe it is kind of a joint partnership with James Jones that they pitch him. I genuinely don't know, because we don't know enough about Bob Myers' interest. We just know the Suns side of things, but I think it would have to be tailored to whatever Bob Myers wants to do. This is what we're willing to do for you. And obviously there's the base of a lot of money, but I am curious how this would how you pitch someone like Bob Myers on coming to Phoenix when one of Phoenix's first priorities in the offseason, it seems like to this point, is trading Kevin Durant. How does that impact things? Because we know Bob Myers and Kevin Durant obviously have history from their time together in Golden State. Is that something that he would want to do? Would he be averse to the prospect of trading KD? Would he want to keep KD? Would that be something that he makes a non-negotiable? Like, these are all questions that would need to be answered before I have kind of any idea of how they're going to go about pitching him.
I think Bob Myers will, for one, add to the culture shift that Mat Ishbia is speaking to, wanting to set a brand new tone going forward with, starting there at the top and then working down to the last player on the roster. I think Bob Myers aligns with that. I also think that he will have some say-so in some capacity to the head coach that they decide to go forward with as well.
Yeah.
Eye for talent has never been an issue for him, and I think that doing so in a winning fashion just continues to speak to why it makes a lot of sense regardless of what capacity he's in, if he's involved. I am curious, though, what that would look like, if he's splitting it or if he gets the outright position. I think all of those dynamics certainly play, but I do think, I can't speak for Kevin Durant, but winning championships with someone usually lends itself to you not being, against that person coming back or being around you in some capacity.
Well, I think it's interesting because if Bob Myers is coming to the Phoenix Suns, I want him to be all in. Like, I want him to be in the main position. If James Jones is still here, I want him to be clearly ahead of him in the pecking order. What I don't want is him to be like, oh, I'll be like a consultant. I'll be like a part-time role, because then you kind of question how invested are you in really turning this around? Or are you just doing this so that you still have your free time and you don't have to be on air? I'm not saying he would do that, but if that situation presented itself, I'd rather have maybe some up-and-coming general manager or front office executive take that role and take a shot on them, just like we're talking about for head coach. But I think it's funny, in the chat, there's a couple people saying, well, Bob Myers did really well with draft picks and we don't have draft picks. And then we have other people saying, the thing that Bob Myers screwed up the most was draft picks. Well, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the best and the worst moves for Bob Myers. I figured now is an appropriate time to revisit those for those of you in the chat who were not here during that show. So hit that like button and let's go ahead and start with the good. These are Bob Myers' best moves as he was the GM and president of basketball operations for the Golden State Warriors for 4 championship runs over a decade long. Of course, hiring Steve Kerr, still the head coach there, and of course the head coach during that dynasty, and replacing a very established head coach as well, and somebody who had respect in that franchise. So not the easiest decision to move on, and then nailed the hiring afterwards. That's pretty hard. Drafting possibly the second best second round pick of all time in Draymond Green in the 2012 draft, signing Kevin Durant, obviously, a sign and trade for Andre Iguodala, which at the time was a massive shock to other executives considering the amount of value he had to attach to get Iguodala, signing Curry to a $44 million extension after his rookie contract and his ankle injuries, which threatened his career, and him taking that lower amount of money, of course, led the way to Kevin Durant being able to sign in the summer of 2016. And then, of course, turning Kevin Durant wanting to leave into a sign and trade with D'Angelo Russell, which then eventually turned into Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga. And I know that people might laugh at that now, but Andrew Wiggins was the second best player on a championship team. So when you look at the best moves, Gerald, before we get to the worst, do you feel like that type of success is something that he would be able to replicate? Maybe not on the 4 championships level, but as far as getting this franchise on the right path.
Some of it. I think some of it boils down to scenarios that you kind of can't really prepare for. Like the whole Steph Curry contract that they were able to sign him to, which gave them the ability to pay Clay and Draymond and KD all at the same time and afford all 4 of those guys, is kind of like a once in a lifetime stroke of luck. Like it is. Like we didn't, at the time, Curry could barely stay healthy. We didn't know what his future was going to look like. And obviously contracts back then, a lot less lucrative than they are now. So they got him on a bargain discount, one of the greatest players of all time. I don't know that you can count on something like that happening in Phoenix. I don't know that you can count on, like something like a Kevin Durant falling into your lap once again, because obviously you have to have the right infrastructure to be attractive to superstar free agents. And I think the Suns are going to be competitive in those types of things when they have cap space again. But like Kevin Durant basically picked where he wanted to go there. So some of these things are not replicable, but some of the moves that he made on the margins, like the Draymond Green drafting in the second round, that's good for a Suns team that, their draft capital is not very great. They don't own a lot of their own picks moving forward. They're going to have to bank on other teams' draft picks that they own, using those well late in the first round, in the early second round. So that strikes me as something that's good, and recognizing the value in a guy like an Andre Iguodala or some of these other guys that they were able to bring into the fold, Sean Livingston,
drafting
to round
Harrison
out the roster
Barnes as well.
Right. Those are all things that bode well for a Suns team that is not going to be all in on superstar talent, but needs to find good fits.
That's my thing. Bob has an eye for talent in terms of pieces that can add to the puzzle, that make a team whole, that can insulate a star player, but also fit complementary to that style of play that the head coach, as well as the best player on the team or best players on the team, desire. And I think the other big thing for me with Bob, and this is something that I feel like kind of gets lost in the weeds at times, is the ability to just make deals happen.
Yeah.
How many times do you hear about, okay, this team was interested in this player, X player ends up going elsewhere, turn into an all-star, or seeing talent before it actually happens, they go elsewhere and make something happen. I think the Derek White example is something that is very much something that he could find for the Suns in some capacity. And if you add a type of player like that that fits the Suns context, that shifts things in favor of them and where they desire to be going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to nail moves on the margins, and you've got to put yourself in the conversations for players that do become available like that.
Yeah, well, we looked at some of the best moves, but of course, there's a reason why Bob Myers is no longer in Golden State, and there's a reason why some Warriors fans are a little sour on the end of his tenure there, and that's because with the good always comes the bad. So let's go ahead and play devil's advocate, and let's take a look at some of his worst moves as a general manager and president of basketball operations over with Golden State. Of course, a lot of these having to do with the draft, including drafting Damian Jones over second-round picks like Malcolm Brogdon, Zubats, and of course George Niang. The Kelly Oubre trade where you get one season of value out of him. He doesn't really add a lot, and he moves on. The big one, drafting James Wiseman second overall. Of course, that's the COVID draft, so it was hard to scout out players during that. Moses Moody over Trey Murphy III, Kuminga over Franz Wagner, and drafting Jacob Evans over, and this is a long list, Jalen Brunson, Gary Trent Jr., Bruce Brown, Jared Vanderbilt, Mitchell Robinson, DeAnthony Melton, Javon Carter, and somebody else that I cannot read because it's in the corner of the screen. But lots of misses in the draft from Bob Myers. Does that worry you if he were to take a position here?
Potentially, but then if James Jones is still involved, like I think some people can point to James Jones' draft track record as being pretty decent. And I think especially over the last couple of years, like, yes, they traded away Tumani, but from a draft evaluation standpoint, identifying Tumani Kamara as a guy in the 50s, getting Ryan Dunn and trading down for him, and then getting Oso at 40. I think those were all pretty solid picks. They're not, going to blow anybody away. But I think if you have those two potentially working in tandem, maybe you feel a little bit better about some of the draft misfires from Bob Myers.
No, this track record doesn't turn me off. And I unintentionally teed myself up. The fact that I spoke about him pushing deals across the finish line and also identifying talent. Mm-hmm. For the Suns, same question I posed yesterday. How many of the draft picks that they have and that they may compile going forward are going to actually be kept in-house to then be drafted with versus being used for transaction purposes? Put two and two together, someone that's good at identifying talent around the league as well as good at executing deals, and you give them draft picks to help insulate that move. I think it's a match made in heaven in terms of him having a little bit of a pick of the litter because the Suns don't have like a robust draft compilation like you spoke to, Gerald, but there are options on the table, and I feel like he's one that's going to be open-minded enough to explore them all and exhaust them all to put the team in the best position.
Would you say that if you were putting together a list for the Suns, he would be your number one candidate?
Probably. I mean, it's funny because like GM candidates are not the same as head coaching candidates. Like anytime a coach gets fired, you could throw out like 10 names that might make sense to replace him. Executives are not the same way. Like we never put together lists of like this GM and that GM, he's an up and coming guy. Like a lot of what they do goes unnoticed behind the scenes. So it's harder to identify, okay, that guy would be good as a new GM. But I would probably say, just by default, because there aren't a ton of other options. Like maybe David Griffin is another name that you could throw into that category. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he'd probably be number one just by default for me.
Yeah, I would say yes, because proof of concept for me. Mm-hmm. How thorough is your track record, and what were the results from your track record? And this is all inclusive, positives and negatives. Multiple championships over a six-year span. I think anybody signs themselves up for that. Mm-hmm. And naturally, it being recent on top of that, I think aligns with where the Suns want to be too. I'll just throw out there also Nazir Muhammad, the understudy of Sam Presti over in Oklahoma City. Yeah, the day-to-day spending time with somebody, you're going to learn things to then not just copy and paste, but reverse engineer in a way that you see fitting for whatever opportunity might potentially come for you. I would like to see him if it's not Bob Myers.
So it's not just Bob Myers who the Suns need to convince that they're still a top-tier organization, someplace that's worth spending your time and committing to. It's also to the players. We have a couple big announcements, one for the show, one for AllCity, plus we're diving into the Athletics Anonymous player poll right after our first break. I have a hard time relaxing. Surprise, 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 surprise. And that's why I love our friends over at Cornbread Hemp, because Cornbread Hemp has a combination of CBD and THC that feels great and that's also organic. In fact, it's vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, no artificial flavors or preservatives, third-party lab tested for potency, terpenes, and contaminants, made from flower only, and USDA certified organic. A full spectrum gummy, and you could take a 2-minute quiz on their website to get a custom recommendation tailored to your needs, whether it's aches, check, I've got those, pains, check, I've got those, sleep support, check, I need that, and stress relief. Okay, so it's all of the above. Basically, I would love and have loved all of Cornbread's products. They taste good, they make you feel good, and right now, if you want to give Cornbread a try, which I would highly recommend, they're offering PHNX Suns listeners 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/PHNX and use promo code PHNX at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/PHNX. Use code PHNX for 30% off your first order. And of course, that is The Good Life. Also, The Good Life, saving 40 cents off per gallon when you fill up at Circle K just by being a member of the Inner Circle. Now that's tomorrow, so mark your calendars down for tomorrow. Set an alarm, whatever you need to do. Drive your car as many miles you need to today to warrant filling up tomorrow at your local Circle K, because you get 40 cents off per gallon from 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. just by joining the Inner Circle. Gerald, how easy is it to join the Inner Circle?
Pretty easy.
1, 2, 3.
Literally that's all you have to do. Type in your phone number, type in your email, and automatically you are saving money, not just tomorrow, but every day on gas. 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, 3 cents off per gallon every day after that, plus, of course, drinks and snacks and everything under the Circle K sun. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details. Some housekeeping notes before we get to the Athletics Anonymous player poll and what they had to say about the Phoenix Suns. We have some big and little news here at not just PHNX, but at an AllCity level. I'm personally extremely excited about this because part of the reason why I came to this company was because I care about my community and I loved what PHNX was doing here in Phoenix, and of course what AllCity is doing locally across the country. And that's why we are all excited to be announcing that we are teaming up with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America for an exciting 3-year partnership. Gerald, you've been here since the start. We are all about community, and so is Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America.
Absolutely. And this is really exciting as someone who's been here for the 3+ years that we've been doing this, because this is the biggest thing that we'll be able to do out in the community, having a positive impact. And especially as someone who's going to become a father soon, like it's always touching for me to start thinking about the future and the people's lives that you're going to impact and that you can impact. So you don't have to be a parent here to be able to give back to your community. And so that's why I'm so excited about this program, the prospect of being involved in a program that does so much good for the youth of our community and communities all over the country.
Yeah, I'll get a little transparent here. I'm a son of a single mother. So I hold that opportunity to impact somebody who might be in the same situation that I was in when I was younger to as high a value as anything else. And I think having that opportunity and being able to do so in alignment with the company that you're working with just kind of makes everything make a lot of sense. So I'm looking forward to taking advantage of the opportunities that we'll have going forward with that.
Stephen, will you be my big brother?
I mean, I'm older than you, so yeah.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to get that out there. Super excited. This partnership is kicking off, of course, an NFL draft week. Huge week for us. Huge week for Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. But it will be going throughout this year. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to help raise some money for them, help share some stories, and we are super excited from that. So make sure you keep track with AllCity and Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. Speaking of big announcements, though, Stephen, you don't even know this because behind the scenes, producing on the fly, Seth Davis of CBS Sports, in-studio analyst for college basketball, host of Campus Insiders, and of course the founder and the editor-in-chief of Hoops HQ, will be joining us live here in about 10 to 15 minutes to talk NBA draft and maybe a late second-round prospect the Suns can keep their eyes on. So keep your eyes out for that. Seth Davis joining us later in this show. But we got to fill some time before we get there. So why not talk about what we were going to talk about in the first place? And that is the Athletics Anonymous player poll. Now, before we get into some more of the nitty gritty on this, I think some people were surprised to see the Phoenix Suns on the list of the best organizations in the NBA and not the worst. So these are what the NBA players anonymously voted as the league's best organization. Gerald, the Suns, they're not at the very top, but they still look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, so I did the math. Out of the 137 votes cast, a 1.5% tally means they got like 2 votes.
They're on there.
But these are from players like outside of your own organization, right? So 2 players outside of the Suns organization voted for the Suns as the best organization. That's not great, but it's not insignificant either. And it is telling that they're not on the worst organizations list. I know to the fan base, it probably feels that way. And this season, they were arguably the most disappointing team in the league right alongside Philly. But there's a lot that goes on into making a great organization or a bad organization behind the scenes. And I think we lose sight of that. And I think we do lose sight of what makes the Suns an attractive organization. It goes beyond on-court results. It goes into the practice facility. It goes into having an owner that's willing to spend. It goes into quality of life here in Phoenix and just in all of these different facilities. So those things do matter to prospective free agents. And it's why I won't consider the Suns, oh, everyone's going to look at this terrible season and nobody's going to want to come to Phoenix. I don't think that's going to be the case.
I don't put too much stock in anonymous polls, whether it's complimentary or on the other side. Say it with your chest. That's my whole thing, bro. If you're gonna say it, then say it. Stand 10 toes down on it. It's the same way I feel about the votes from the media on men's side and women's side. If you're taking a stance on something or if you have something to say, it doesn't hold true value to me unless you're gonna attach your name or affiliation to it.
I agree. You can't put too much in the anonymous player poll. To be honest, though, I'm shocked they're not on the worst organizations, but I think that goes to a lot of behind the scenes, what they do to take care of players, the investment that Mat Ishbia has done in the facilities, right? And I do think that a lot of fans underrate that, Gerald, as to why this place would be attractive for players, especially these veteran minimum guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at some point, if you keep churning through a new batch of vet minimum guys every single year and there's no stability and, you're firing a coach every other year, that will look bad at a certain point. And I think we're getting close to it, but I don't think we're there yet. And I also do think, as much as I also agree with Stephen that if you're going to have an opinion or you're going to make comments, put your name to it. But I also think there's value in anonymous player surveys because we know who the crop of people are that are involved. And a lot of these guys aren't going to publicly identify they're not going to answer these questions truthfully. They're going to beat around the bush. They're not going to say it outright. They're not going to create rivalries or smoke or anything like that. So I do find it interesting that at least we get somewhat of a fair barometer when they do these anonymous player polls of how they're actually feeling. Because otherwise, I feel like probably more than half of these guys wouldn't even participate.
Yeah. So question for you two. You would agree with me, this is more of a statement, I guess, that it's harder to sell the Suns to potential free agents and to trade candidates this offseason than it would have been in off seasons past, the last couple.
I think it's a little bit harder, but I don't think you're going to have a hard time getting meetings with certain guys or being able to sell them on what you're doing moving forward.
Yeah, that's my thing. Yes, the season was what it was. There's clear change that's happening. I don't think it's going to be a detractor, though. I think it honestly is something that's going to be attractive for the types of players that Mat Ishbia continues to say that they desire. You say you want dogs. One thing a dog is not going to do is run away from a challenge.
Yeah.
And in fact, they're going to flip that and they're going to see it mentally as an opportunity. Those are the type of people you want in house, if that is the way that you're hoping to align your roster.
I'm glad you said that because I wrote a paragraph here of what I would say if I was in the meeting, if I was Mat Ishbia, trying to sell a potential free agent who's on the fence about coming to Phoenix. So buckle up, strap in. Let me take you on a ride. Imagine that you two are very important free agents that I'm trying to convince to come to the Phoenix Suns. Okay. Are we ready?
Yep.
Hey there. It's Mat Ishbia. Before I tell you why you would be so lucky to come play for the incredible fans in Phoenix.
Too slow.
You're not talking fast enough.
Talking too slow.
That's the first time. That's the first time anybody's ever said that to me.
Yeah, the perfect opportunity.
Okay.
Come on,
hey
man.
there, it's Mat Ishbia. Before I tell you why you'd be lucky to play for the incredible fans in Phoenix, I have one simple question to ask you. Would you like a free home in one of the nicest areas in America? Okay, while you chew on that one, I actually need you to close your eyes for a second and walk with me on this journey to your jersey retirement. It's no secret, this franchise had a very down year, one of the most embarrassing in NBA history. But don't you find it ironic or poetic that our city, the team that is famously known for rising from the ashes, you can be a reason why we go from most embarrassing story in the association to greatest redemption arc in sports history. You can be a part of history. You can cement yourself among franchise legends, fan favorites, players who can walk into any restaurant in the state and walk out with a free meal, a pat on the back, and a line of fans ready to take a picture with one of the biggest reasons why they're proud to be a Phoenix Suns fan. champions. We will be a crucial part in the foundation of success that Phoenix is built on. We will win championships here in Phoenix. And what we will do for you as an organization? Well, I'm glad you asked that. Besides the free home you'll get upon your signature hitting that contract, we'll supply you with the best resources in the NBA, from training facility to travel to meals to family experience and everything in between. Any money you leave on the table elsewhere, you'll make up in peace of mind from freely focusing on your craft, enjoying the city you play in, and loving your life. Also, Devin Booker is pretty cool. And I heard he wants to take you up to Flagstaff so you can sip on some of the best coffee you've ever tasted. So, what do you say?
Missed one big thing, and I'm honestly ashamed.
Oh, no.
How in the world could you not say that you also get to sit and talk to Erik, Gerald, and Stephen on the PHNX Sports podcast?
That's after they sign the contract.
Okay,
That's the fine print.
okay.
That was really hard. I tried to.
That was great.
I tried to keep that up.
That was great. Great.
That kind of hurt my throat.
Painted a vivid picture with words. Good job.
No, that's kind of what the pitch is. And some of those things are things that you're going to hear from a lot of other teams. But in the Suns' case, you are going to have to sell them on the differences that you have in terms of like the investment that this owner has in his franchise. I do think you listen to a lot of the free agents that have come here and no, from a basketball perspective, a lot of them haven't worked out. But a lot of these guys being recruited by Ishbia was part of what attracted them to Phoenix, because a lot of owners don't go that far in terms of trying to get guys to come here, trying to convince them to come here. So that level of buy-in, it does matter. As much as people interpret that as over-involvement or overstepping kind of his duties, which I understand, there is that level of commitment that does matter to these players. They're not going to, like, yes, money matters, but if you're a team like the Suns that is dabbling mostly in vet minimum deals or not max contracts for some of these guys, they're going to want to go somewhere where they have an ownership group that's committed to winning and not just, here's money, come play for us.
Yeah, there's inherent risk with that, because you could end up being included in a transaction that might fit with the vision of the team that might potentially make them better down the line. But the reward part is that, to your point, Gerald, you know that you have an ownership or an owner in particular that is looking to get the absolute most out of the situation. Yeah. You don't have to worry about if you're quote unquote wasting your time in terms of trying to contend or compete for a championship, because that's very much 10 toes down where he is with his opinion.
Emilio says, under the table money. Best sell of all time. Also, Lucas says, at least at Left Hand Ruby isn't glazing Rudy Gobert today.
Oh, no.
Yet. ...
2T Matt,
and then, yeah, 2T Mat Ishbia in the chat says, I'm Matt with 3 T's. Well, I appreciate you donning me with Mat Ishbia status. One thing that Mat Ishbia's team is going to have to do this summer to help get back on track is nail the draft. We are going to talk to Seth Davis of Hoops Hype HQ and so much more right after our second break. Listen, you got to listen to me when I read this ad, and definitely not Steven, because I'm talking about Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Whether you're down $475 like Steven or up $2 million like me, Bet365 is the place to be. Not only just because their app is so easy to use, even if Steven couldn't figure out how to press the right buttons during the season, but also because they have so many great deals for you, including new customers right now. If you can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code PHNX365, deposit 10, place a bet for 5, get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Call it the Steven Special. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT-STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Steven, I'm very sorry for calling you out on that, but maybe one day when I own a home, or maybe we can convince Gerald to check out our friends over at All Pro Shade Concepts, and we can break bread and talk about betting strategy under a nice automatic retractable awning that keeps Gerald's patio 20 degrees cooler in that hot Arizona sun. And the best part is Gerald has hundreds of designs and colors to choose from to match his home and to satisfy that pesky HOA. Gerald, listen, roll down patio shades not only are effective, but they look great as well, and you're getting it from the most trusted local shade company. Of course, that is All Pro Shade Concepts, voted #1 by Ranking Arizona for patio shades in 2024, has an A+ Better Business Bureau ranking, and of course, over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google. In business for over 20 years here in the Valley, licensed, bonded, and insured. Call 623-204-1476 or visit allproshadeconcepts.com right now to schedule your free estimate. Well, we get Seth Davis lined up here. He just called in, so we're loading that in. I want to remind everybody to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We do have a Die Hard sale going on right now for just $36. That is $3 a month. You can become a Die Hard today. Of course, that includes so many things, not just Gerald's fantastic writing, but access to our Die Hard Discord, exclusive audio and video content, a 20% discount to all of our events, and so much more. Go to gophnx.com/join to become a Die Hard today before that sale expires. It will not go on forever. gophnx.com/join. Now, to join us talking NBA draft, specifically what the Phoenix Suns can do in it, we are proud to welcome the editor-in-chief and co-founder of Hoops HQ, and of course, Hopes of Campus Insiders, in-studio analyst for CBS. It's Seth Davis. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today, Seth.
What's going on, guys? How you doing, young fellas?
Oh, we're doing good. We can't talk about the best of the best.
I was telling my friends, I don't know when it happened that I'm always the oldest guy on the Zoom call.
Well, we're going to call it the wisest guy on the Zoom call.
Why not?
So we can't focus on the lottery and the best of the best here in Phoenix because the Suns, well, they traded away the rights to their own draft pick this year, but the draft is still crucial for the Suns, who hold the 29th pick and the 52nd pick. From your perspective, this year in college basketball, would you consider this a deep draft?
Yeah, I think I would consider it a deep draft. I mean, I think it sort of remains to be seen. Especially I think after the combine and everything. But yeah, I think it's certainly very strong at the top. I mean, that we know, right? So I think that, I'm a Wizards fan, not a Suns fan. So this is not a good year to not have a top pick, I guess. So the top of the draft, I think, is a little stronger than we're used to seeing. But yeah, I would say that I would describe it as a deep draft. Is it a super deep draft? Probably too early to tell.
Seth, obviously here in Phoenix, draft picks are not in abundance right now, but the Suns do have a pick. They're number 29 in the first round. Then they got another one in the 50s. Were there any players in the tournament that kind of impressed you to the point that they could be, maybe late first round prospects, or guys that kind of built their stock during the tournament?
Well, I think the first guy that comes to mind is Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida. He obviously, was arguably the best player in the tournament, and was the reason why they won a national championship. I've seen him a little bit all over the board. I think at this point he's probably going to be gone by the time Phoenix gets there at 29. I'm just looking at a mock draft right now on my laptop. I see Chaz Lanier from Tennessee. That'd be a pretty good one to get at 29. So, I think you're going to get a quality player, and then it's a question of, getting a good fit and then developing him within your system and your franchise. Probably going to spend a good part of his rookie year in the G League. But, you're drafting at the end of the first round, you get someone who you feel like should be able to help you within a year or two.
Seth, I'm curious, what do you deem as the position of strength for this upcoming draft?
To be honest, guys, it's a little early to have sort of dug into it. I mean, I think it's a wing heavy draft when you look at the top of the draft with Cooper Flagg and Edgecombe and Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson. I'm a little bit more familiar, obviously, Con Kneppel. I'm more familiar with the college guys than the internationals. So, and I just think that generally speaking, that's kind of the way the game has gone. Like if you're positionless, it used to be, back in the old days, they called you a tweener, right? They say, well, he doesn't have a position. He's a tweener. That was a negative thing, and that's become now a positive thing. Like if you're a tweener, that means you're positionless, you're versatile, and they especially want to see that versatility on the defensive end. That should be something you guys should be looking out for. Who can guard multiple positions, because everything is so ball screen heavy. Everybody can shoot, so you got to spread the floor. You got 6'10", 6'11" guys who can stretch the floor and also put it on the deck. You need someone who can do a lot of that switching defensively.
Before we continue to look at this draft, it's funny because I'm looking back at this past year with Ryan Dunn and Oso Iguodaro and how important they were to the Phoenix Suns' success and them being later round picks. What was your analysis of them coming out of college? Because they had some pretty glaring weaknesses that a lot of people were concerned about when having them on their draft boards.
Yeah, I mean, you just never know, right? I mean, Oso played in a really good system for him at Marquette, and he was a late bloomer as well, right? So, you just weren't sure how the physicality would translate. But I tend to feel like, if guys are good players in college, they're probably going to be good pros. In Dunn's case, it was a lot harder to tell. You could see flashes of his potential. You never really saw it put together. He wasn't a big-time scorer. Of course, he played in a system at Virginia that didn't score a lot of points. But Tony Bennett's got a pretty good track record of developing players and having them ready to be in the NBA. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think when you're talking about where Phoenix is going to be drafted, late first, early second, it's a lot more art than science at that part of the draft. What are the intangibles? What's the competitiveness? It's funny when I talk to NBA scouts, they tend to not like the older players, right? Oh, he's a senior. He's got less upside. We prefer him young, even though he's not as good. He's got more upside. I'm like, I didn't realize people were finished products at 21, 22 years old. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can get better if you're a college senior, or even a fifth-year senior, and then you enter the league. And of course, you're able to make an impact more so right away. And so I do sense that NBA teams, NBA scouts are a little bit more open-minded about that. That say, hey, first of all, here's a guy we know who can play. He can compete right away. And also, just because he's a fifth-year senior, maybe even a sixth-year senior with the COVID year coming out of college, that there's still a lot of room to develop in terms of his basketball potential.
Seth, you mentioned it's probably a little too early to be digging into the nitty-gritty of the draft, but if you were the GM of the Phoenix Suns, how are you approaching this draft? What are you kind of looking for in a prospect? And are there any players that kind of fit what you would be looking for to add to this team?
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys follow the Suns a lot more closely than I do. I think the first question, can you guys fill me in on where we are with Kevin Durant? Are we sure that he's even on this team, or is he? I mean, I know there's a lot of chatter about him at the trade deadline. So when free agency, do we know that Durant is on this team next year, or where are we with KD?
Probably not. Right. I guess there's a chance, but most likely it's a no.
So you're saying there's a chance. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's the first question. And if Durant is not there, then you have to be careful. And I know they're smart enough to be careful. Be careful about, we need to draft another Durant, right? We need to find, first of all, there is no Durant until they know who's going to be as good, but we need to find a 6'11" two guard who can go get us 40 by rolling out of bed. They're not going to find that. Now, there are a couple of players who are sort of Durant-like, Ace Bailey at Rutgers, but he's obviously not going to be around. So I just think you want a good piece and someone who can maybe become an asset that becomes part of a trade. Certainly, like a lot of teams, looking at Phoenix's roster right now, there's not a lot of size on this team, but the way that the game is going, obviously, is you don't want size, you want size with skill. So, for example, like I know that Derek Queen's not going to be around at that point, but, he's got size, but there's, folks who are kind of all over the map, frankly, about whether Queen is going to be an effective pro. I know he's projected to be a lottery pick. Just looking at some of the other, players who are projected, like Will Riley out of Illinois, again, may not be there. Some of these top picks, in the second round. Danny Wolf is a very intriguing guy who, might be available as a 7-footer who can play inside and out. He's obviously not going to do it like Durant. Janai Broome is a very, very interesting case. I am frankly not super convinced that he's going to be a great pro. I think he can play in the league, but kind of similar to Zach Edey, and Zach Edey came along at a different pace. But if someone is the best player in college basketball, he's probably going to be an NBA player. But Janai Broome is not somebody you look at and say, "What boy, that's a pro." You look at him almost like a Drew Timme at Gonzaga, right? Like a really, really good college player, but as of now, not really an effective pro. So that's the guessing game at this part of the draft. That's what kind of makes it fun. Like when I talk to scouts about this player or that player, and I'll make an argument for certain guys that I like, and the scout will say to me, "Well, would you bet your job on him?" I said, "No, but I'll bet your job on him." And that's what it is. It's a big guessing game.
Seth, I'm a big-time Michigan State Spartan fan through and through. Didn't go to Michigan State, but mentally I was there since I was like 8 or 7. All of the guys that came through Izzo's program and made it to the league are cut from a certain cloth. I'm curious from your perspective, do you see teams looking at the program that players are coming from and taking that into account in addition to the talent and the individual that they may be bringing in?
No question. No question. And again, these are sort of at the edges, right? I mean, the fact that someone played for Izzo won't make them go from 30 to 10, but it might make them go from 30 to 26. It might make them go from undrafted to middle of the second round, especially at that part of the draft. When you get to the later parts of the draft, middle to the end of the second round, character and intangibles really mean a lot because you're getting someone who's probably going to spend most, if not all of his rookie season in the G League. And is he going to be able to figure it out? Is he going to show up and work? Is he going to stay out of trouble and not cause those problems? Is he going to be part of a unit? Is he going to be part of a franchise and understand that it's not all about him? Is he going to fight through adversity? Is he going to come in entitled or is he going to come in professional? A lot of these guys are signed because they want him in practice, right? I mean, only, 8 or 9 players are going to play in a game. So that means 6 guys are not going to get in the game. And who are they? They're in your locker room. They're on your team bus. They're at team meals. They're at practice. Who do you want on your franchise? And for players like that, playing for a guy like Tom Izzo is a huge, huge, huge plus.
Seth, last one I had for you. Me and Erik here are ASU guys, but we'd be remiss if we did not ask on behalf of our Wildcats program here about Caleb Love, who is entering the NBA draft. What do you think about his prospects as a draft entry?
I mean, I think Caleb Love's a pro. I think he's a big-time player. He's a big-time scorer. I mean, obviously, his issue in college was was efficiency. That he's more of a volume shooter. Reminds me what the great Dean Smith used to say. He used to say, "I don't need outside shooters. I need outside makers." But the thing about Caleb is he's competitive as heck. And the bigger the game, it seemed like the better that he played. And even in the games when he played poorly, I always liked his competitive spirit. He wasn't afraid to go 2 for 12. Maybe he should have been. But there's something to be said for that amnesia about, I know I missed my last 9, but this one's going in. And by the way, if we need a bucket at the end of the game, I don't care how I played at that point, I need to have that ball in my hands. That's a unique quality. So he's got to get better. I think he'll put in the work. I think he'll put in the time. In the NBA, if you can be a floor spacer, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got the burst. He just needs to tighten up that jader a little bit. And if he can be that, and again, it's tougher now. The toughest thing for him will be, he can't afford to be a volume shooter, especially at the start. He's going to come off the bench and get 1 or 2 pops, playing in space, catch and shoot, coming off ball screens, maybe some pick and roll action. But, he's not going to have an entire game to shoot his way into a rhythm. He's going to have to do it right away. So it's going to be a big time adjustment. But I think he's a pro. I'm saying it right now. I think Caleb Love's a pro. I think he's going to be in the league for a number of years.
All I heard was forks up. That's all I got from that one.
That's right.
Seth, thank you so much for joining us here on The Fly. We appreciate you.
I love the hustle. Keep it up, guys. I'm honored that you invited me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Make sure, of course, if you're not already following Seth, you can do that at Seth Davis Hoops, of course, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Hoops HQ and all over the college basketball world. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. Okay.
All right, guys, we're going to talk a little playoff basketball right after our final break. Huge news from David Kimmerly, that of course is president of America's most awarded Ford dealership, Sanderson Ford. Ford just announced From America for America employee pricing. Now you pay what he pays on the full lineup of new Fords with no hassle, no pressure, no nonsense, and no added markups. Listen, employee pricing levels the playing field for Ford dealers, but the thing is, you're not going to get any added markups with Sanderson Ford. Other dealers will add addendums and add-ons, but not David Kimberly, not Sanderson Ford. Choose Sanderson because they have an inventory and a 70-year reputation of treating you right. Ford is undeniably the most America-first automaker in the world. 80% of vehicles Ford sells are assembled in factories located in America, and they'll be less affected by the tariffs. Now's the best time to buy a new Ford with From America for America employee pricing. It excludes the 2025 Expedition, 2025 Super Duty, Raptors, Mustang, and Bronco specialty vehicles, but go check out Sanderson Ford. And if you're looking to revamp your home, of course, you gotta give Empire Today a call. We call you guys the psychos and sickos, the real freaks who love basketball on a different level. Empire Today, they're the psychos and sickos of flooring. Nobody cares more about flooring and specifically getting your flooring right in your home than Empire Today. Empire Today is way better than all of the big box stores. You're not going to wonder, endless aisles with no help, overwhelmed, and then left with a DIY project or somebody telling you they can come by in the next 6 to 8 months with no guarantee. No, Empire Today will be in your home and they can start installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHNX. Yep, you heard that right. $350 discount with code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHNX for full details. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for a surprise Seth Davis appearance on the fly. We'll be getting a lot more into draft talk later in the summer. We'll do very, very quick playoff predictions at the end of the show, but let's get back to the Athletics Anonymous player poll. So we looked at the best and the worst organizations. Well, the Phoenix Suns had a contender for a winner in a category, that winner being the worst coach in the league. This one honestly confuses me up top. Brian Keefe, head coach of the Washington Wizards, up at 24.7%, but in second, Mike Budenholzer at 17.8%. Are we surprised?
No, I am surprised at some of the names on the list, but I'm not surprised Mike Budenholzer was number 2. I wonder if the Brian Keefe thing is just like, I'm going to pick the coach of the worst team in the NBA because from afar, I don't really know him that well. Or if there's just like, if Wizards players hate him behind the scenes, I don't know enough. But it was
kind of all Wizards players.
Because like Charles Lee made that list too.
Which is, that's crazy.
Which felt like it was just like, I'm going to pick one of the worst teams head coach. But Bud, very deserving.
I think he should be 1.
Probably. Number 1 in our hearts.
I
don't know about that one.
I don't think Brian Keefe was nearly as bad as people are. Well, at least as this makes it seem.
Right.
My question is, what did he have to work with?
Jordan Poole.
And a bunch of young talent that's all raw. Everybody's trying to stake their claim in the league. Like
the ghost of Chris Middleton.
On top of that, right. That's a little tough to work with. The context is very different for Brian Keefe than it was for Mike Budenholzer or Doc Rivers or Nick Nurse. So, like, all these contexts are different. It is what it is, but I just thought it was somewhat poetic that Mike Budenholzer was number 2. I'll leave that there for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like if you just pulled Phoenix Suns players, it would be 100% Mike Budenholzer. Speaking of Phoenix,
not 100. Grayson Allen probably wouldn't vote.
Yeah, Grayson. I don't know, man. Grayson was getting pretty down and out about it.
He was pretty down.
He was a sad boy at the end of the season.
No, would have been first in line was Bull.
Which, by the way,
there you go.
Steven and I talked about, did Mike Budenholzer and the Phoenix Suns screw over Bull? Let me slam that one down. That's in your audio feeds and up on YouTube right now. Go ahead and check that out. Nice 15 minutes unlocked for everybody. And of course, Steve and I will be diving deeper into playoff stuff tomorrow morning for diehards only. That being said, there was another Phoenix Suns sighting in the Athletics Anonymous player poll. And wouldn't you know, it was another not good category, the most overrated player. Yes, it starts off with Tyrese Haliburton at 14.4%, which is interesting. Apparently, my favorite player of all time, Rudy Gobert at 10%, Trae Young at 8.9%, Jimmy Butler at 5.5%, and then coming in at 5th, our friend, everybody's favorite Phoenix Sun, Bradley Beal, tied with Draymond, Ja, and Julius Randle. Only 4.4% of votes.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because I like, who is rating Bradley Beal at this point?
I was about to say, that's like, nobody thinks he's good anymore.
Right.
So.
Like, I feel like the overrated, like, I get it, get your jokes in, but at the same time, like, who is viewing him as like an all-star at this point anymore after the way the last 2 seasons have gone? I was kind of, I get why he's on the list, but I was kind of surprised to see him on the list for that reason.
I'm genuinely surprised that Tyrese Haliburton is number 1.
That's
crazy to me.
I
all the Bucks
I'm
players.
surprised that is very true. I'm surprised because I think that the way that people talk about Tyrese, that part of it, I guess aligns with this. You see the way Damian Lillard was talking to him in game 1, and the way opposing teams generally just kind of look at Tyrese and interact with him. That dude is great. Same thing for Trae Young.
Yeah. 2
different styles of point guards, but the 2 best point guards in the league. Stop disrespecting point guards, man. I take that personally. But I also don't. I'm not surprised that Rudy Gobert is number 2.
No, I would have thought he was number 1.
Oh yeah,
correct.
players
usurped
hate
his
him.
crown.
It's been a decade now.
Yeah,
Tyrese Haliburton and Rudy Gobert being next to each other, and this is crazy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's a player poll, and I know we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Giannis is on this list at 2.2%. LeBron is on this list at 2.2%. Also at 2.2%, no one who reached the NBA is overrated. Isn't that nice and sweet?
That's a nice sentiment. I think there were probably like 2 players that said that.
I'm genuinely surprised Dylan Brooks isn't higher.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks 2.2%. That was Book's vote.
Why is Drew Holiday on the list?
Why is Drew Holiday
Bradley
on there?
Beal?
Yeah.
Bradley Beal said Drew Holiday's overrated, damn it.
Cast his vote twice.
Just in time to make this vote.
Oh, man.
Hey, Chris Haynes, I got a story for you.
There was more from the Athletics Anonymous player poll. None of it really Phoenix Suns related, so maybe at a dead period we can attack some of those things. There was...
We really got a top 3 MVP candidate on this list.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That's insane.
I mean, yeah, that is crazy. From that to a quick draft thing, in case you missed it, just a roundup here with some news at the end of this show. The NBA announced the results of the tiebreakers in this year's draft. Of course, the Suns, quote, won the tiebreaker over Portland, which means their pick that's going to the Rockets is coming in at 9th in the pre-lottery odds. That pick has a 3.8% chance of being the number 1 pick. Portland has 3.7%. So, Gerald, the only time that we win one of these things is when we don't get the pick.
Yeah, it's when it doesn't benefit us. So, moving forward, because we've gotten a lot of questions about this, surprisingly, the Suns do have a first-round pick this year. It is just not their own pick. Their own pick is going to be involved in the draft lottery. Like Erik said, there's a 3.8% chance of it being the number 1 pick, which I'm sure in the minds of Suns fans feels a lot higher than 3.8. But we're going to be keeping an eye on that. We're going to be doing a live reaction show for the draft lottery. Outside of that, it's going to be the Suns at number 29 and the Suns at number 52. Those are the 2 picks they have in the draft.
Don't mind me just Googling what were the Hawks odds for the number 1 pick in the 2024 NBA draft. Don't mind me.
Oh, no.
Atlanta had a 3% chance. So lower. Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Why are you being like that?
Just preparing myself. By the way, if you're watching on TV, prepare yourself because the party always continues over at gophnx.com. That means it's time for overtime. And that means time for some rapid fire NBA playoffs reacts. We have last night, super quick, Indiana going up 2-0 over Milwaukee, OKC going up 2-0 over Memphis, and the Lakers tying up that series 1-1 heading back to Minnesota. Steven, your biggest takeaway from another night of NBA playoff basketball?
I guess two-part. When the Lakers decide to play defense, it's loud and disruptive. Can they sustain it over the course of this series, and what are the counters that Minnesota looks to get into as they go back home to Minnesota? And then the other part of it, Milwaukee. What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't care about defense, and then on offense, you lose the plot intentionally. Like, stop going away from what works.
Yeah, they tried to scram switch Dame quite a bit to hide him on defense, and those went. The timing was poor, the execution was poor, and the Pacers picked it apart a lot in that game. So not looking good heading back to Milwaukee. They say it's not a series until someone wins on the road. But I don't think that's true if you are the road team. If you're the team that doesn't get 4 games at home. So
it's fair. Well, for tonight, starting just about now, Orlando, Boston. Orlando trying to pick up a win on the road. Boston going to be without Jason Tatum. Quick predictions for that one.
Doesn't matter. Boston's winning.
Probably Boston.
Give me winning. Orlando. Screw it. I would
like to see a Magic win. Make it a longer series.
I think they get one at home.
Yeah.
But, and if Tatum's out for those games as well, then that would definitely get interesting. Will Miami-Cleveland be interesting? That one tips off at 4:30. I do hate having 2 playoff games going on at the same time. Miami looking to pick up a win against the number 1 seed in the East.
It's not happening.
I don't think so either.
Not in the cards. That is a juggernaut in Cleveland, and they're going to continue to handle their business accordingly.
Yeah, that's the NBA TV game for a reason. That'll be 2-0.
Something that Suns fans will be very interested in is how the Houston Rockets look tonight after dropping 0-1 to the Golden State Warriors, of course, in part because of their half-court offense and a team linked to Kevin Durant. 6:30 p.m. tip. It's Steph and the Warriors looking to go up 2-0. Will that happen, Gerald?
I don't think so. I think I had Warriors in 6 or 7, so I think the Rockets stabilize a little bit and say, we're a young team, but we're not going to be pushed around. We're not going to shoot as badly as we did in game 1, and we're going to continue to hit the offensive glass. So I think they bounce back tonight.
I think I said Rockets in 7. They have to win this game. If that's the case, it's a must-win.
Yeah.
It's a gotta have it and a must-win.
Wow.
For you,
we're already at
Erik.
a must-win. Wow.
Yes, it's playoffs. Yes.
Wow.
Actually, yes. I think we see a big game from Fred VanVleet tonight. Defensively, maybe they put him on Draymond, force all those screens into a switch. Offensively, if he finds a way to knock down the threes that are conceded and then finds ways on the margins to knock down others in a surprise fashion, that might be enough to bridge the gap because their defense certainly was not the problem in game 1. For another game from the Warriors and Rockets this season that was well below 100 points.
Give me the Rockets to win big. I'm talking double digits tonight. I think they make a statement. I still think they win the series. I don't think they're going to blow out Golden State in the series, but I think they pick up a big win at home. I think this is the one Jalen Green game. This is the one game that he's going to get this series. I think 25 plus from Jalen Green. Let us know your predictions.
Jalen Green having a Devin Booker-esque performance, you might say?
All right. Oh.
We'll see. Discourse loud that one up to me.
We'll see. Okay. Steven and I will be talking about NBA playoff basketball for those psychos and sickos for the diehards only. That'll be coming out sometime tomorrow, early afternoon, late morning. We'll be chatting up about all of the game 2s as they wrap up and previewing the rest of the first round. If you're not a diehard today, go phnx.com/join. Read Gerald's article from Trade Machine Tuesday yesterday about potential Kevin Durant trades. And of course, you can follow along with all of it on @PHNX_Suns. Thank you all so much for joining us here on a Wednesday afternoon. Hit that like button, subscribe, help us get to 40,000 subscribers here on PHNX Sports. Of course, we do so much more than Suns. We have Diamondbacks, who had a huge announcement on the show today, Cardinals, who are in the middle of draft season, of course, Wildcats and ASU, our college teams. Mercury season is just around the corner, and Gerald's wearing our Phoenix Rising shirt because we also cover a team who's won a championship recently, as in the Phoenix Rising. All right here on PHNX Sports. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. We appreciate Kevo behind the Mac, beeping and booping, making all the magic happen. You can follow Steven at StevenPG3. That is Steven with a PH. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget, but you're already doing that. And you can follow me at ErikRuby. And hey, no Rudy Gobert glazing today. Let's make it 2 days in a row tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.